In today's video, I am going to be breaking down two different ETFs. I am going to be putting CIC up against ZWK. Which one's better, which one's worse, or are they both the same? Let's get down and let's check these out. Okay, so what are the differences between CIC and, of course, ZWK? Well, right off the top, CIC wants equity exposure to Canada's 6 largest banks. And of course, if you were to invest in CIC, you want to have a higher income generated from those shares, higher than the dividends that the actual banks pay. And how this ETF does that is by using a covered call strategy. So of course, what is a covered call? Well, let's say you had 100 shares of TD and you wanted to make an extra income from those shares. What you could do is to sell a call option for those 100 shares. And basically what a call option is the new person who owns that call will pay you money, so let's say $100 as an example, to buy those 100 shares of stock at, let's say, $80 a share. Let's say 6 months from now. However, currently they are worth $60 a share. However, basically how that call option works is this new owner would be able to buy 100 shares of TD from you at $60 if they reach $80 in 6 months. If they do not reach $80, then of course this new person does not get the shares and you get to keep the shares and his $100 that was there. I hope that makes sense. This was a lot of terrible drawing. Meanwhile, ZWK is very similar when it comes to the covered call strategy. However, it's doing US banks instead of Canadian banks. So right off the top, which one is better? That is the question. Well, guess what? Let's get a little bit deeper and see which ETF is actually better. But even better than that, what do you feel like is a more stable investment? The Canadian banks that basically have a monopoly in Canada, or the US banks? So since inception, since around 2011, if you were to put around $10,000 into this account, you would be well past $20,000. So you would have doubled your money in about 10 years, 10 and a half years. However, ZWK is a lot newer of an ETF. ZWK, if you put $10,000 into it, you would currently have $12,500. However, this is only since 2019. So we really don't have a 10-year history of ZWK, while we do have a 10-year history of CIC. So we can kind of assume where the trajectory is going to go when it comes to CIC. But with ZWK, we don't really have that ability. We can just kind of go off of what it's currently at over the last year and a half. And it's really hard to tell because, of course, there was that COVID recession that we had. It stabilized. I was buying around between September and December this ETF. And, of course, my family has been buying a few times since then, but I have not. I've been kind of holding my shares when it was way back, when it was well over 10% dividends. It's now increased, it's stabilizing, and, of course, it looks like it's starting to attempt another run. And we kind of see that here as well when it comes to CIC. What you'll find is the Canadian and US market, it actually kind of moves very similarly when it comes to the banks. For the last couple of years, the Canadian banks, most of them, were trading pretty well sideways, and so was a lot of the US banks. However, there was a few US banks and a few Canadian banks that were actually doing extremely well during that time. National Bank in Canada being one of them. So the current dividend yield is 3.68%. But if we look at the dividend that was paid over the past year, we come to a conclusion of about 83.9 cents per share. With it being currently $12.63 per share at the time of making this video, that actually equals 6.64% dividends, technically. But why is that? Well, with a covered call strategy, what you will find is 3.68% is going to be the dividend, and then that rest of that 6.6 that we had, 6.6 something, the extra 3% that we get comes to us usually all at once, but that 3% does account for your capital coming in, which can be taxed depending on the ETF that basically pays you, could be taxed at a different amount. I'm not going to get into that. Covered call strategies can be kind of difficult when it comes to taxes. If you have a tax professional, they'll be able to get through that super simply. It's just one extra box, and they fill it out, and it doesn't really matter. However, when it comes down to it, some ETFs actually basically how they work is what I've seen from my own tax receipts that I get is sometimes they just get classified as dividends, which gets taxed a heck of a lot better. So it doesn't really matter sometimes. But I really don't want that to really confuse you. You don't really have to worry about taxes and things like that if you have an accountant that does it all for you. You just basically give them the papers and say, here, have fun. Next is the holdings of course, the ETF. Now, CIC will hold the big 6 banks: National Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, CIBC, Bank of Nova Scotia, Bank of Montreal, and TD. Currently, my favorite ones is National Bank and, of course, CIBC, BMO, and TD. But, of course, I'm jaded because they've obviously given me massive returns and dividends in the past. However, you're probably asking, what in the heck is this? Well, those are the call options that they currently have out. And you can even download a full list of everything that they're doing as well. But just take as an example what's up here right now. So let's say, for example, we look at BNS call for $80. That's its strike price is $80 right there. And this will then expire on August 20th of this year. That's coming up fairly soon. Well, let's look at the actual price of Bank of Nova Scotia. It's currently $81 per share. So that tells me that this, unless Bank of Nova Scotia by the 20th of this month goes below $80, then we will be losing, or whoever invests in this ETF will be losing some money the Monday after that date. Of course, calls expire on Friday, so it would be Monday that you would want to get in on this ETF, because what basically happens is, of course, when these stocks disappear, sometimes there's a little bit of a downturn on the stock price, which then means, or at least the ETF price, which then means it's a good time to buy in. So there's actually a very interesting strategy that you could actually play if you were, of course, wanting to buy this ETF. Something else you really have to keep in mind with ETFs is the management fee, and of course the management fee for CIC is 0.65%. So no matter, let's say just as an easy example, if you've got $1,000 in on this ETF, then of course you would be paying around $6.50 per year. Of course, when this goes up in price, this also goes up, but that will usually stay the same, that percentage. Meanwhile, the management fee for ZWK is a little bit more expensive at 0.71. The total annualized distribution is 7.4%, so that's above that 6.6% that CIC is giving you. And the other nice thing with ZWK is the fact that it pays monthly and about 18 cents per month, and it's been like that for a little while now. Its top 10 holdings are banks. It's not going to be, the top 10 holdings will not be part of the actual calls that they are selling. And of course, some of the top banks that they have in this group is, of course, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, some of the bigger names that I really like anyways. Bank of America, I used to own that stock individually. Now I own it through ZWK. And I also like PNC Financial and JP Morgan a lot. Now, I'm not saying that the rest of these are any bad or anything. It's just those are my favorites out of this group. So which is better? So of course, if you look at the ZWK side, if you're looking for an income replacement, if you're looking to invest in something that, let's say, 5 years or 10 years down the road you want to retire, or even 3 months down the road you want to retire, or just stop working a darn day job that sucks, then this may be a great option. It's paying 7%. If you put, let's say, $100,000 in this at 7.4%, you're looking at $7,400 a year coming to you divided by the amount of months. If you have, let's say, $1 million and you put $1 million in here, which I would not suggest to put all your money in one basket, you would be able to pull in $74,000 a year. So now it's starting to look really, really nice as an income replacement. But if you're looking to potentially be a little bit more safer, because of course Canadian banks, you're in Canada, let's say, because obviously you're looking at CIC to buy, then CIC may be a better option. ZWK tends to be a bit more riskier because US banks are not regulated as much as Canadian banks. So you have to really kind of weigh the two different factors. Personally, I like both. However, myself, I'm only invested in ZWK. I am not invested in CIC. Remember to do your own research and find what works for your portfolio. Never listen to a random person on the internet. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys again next time.